And hello, welcome to the Absolute Football Podcast, the absolutely non-league show, of course, in collaboration with our wonderful friends at NL Full Time. We're here to talk everything National League North, and National League South. Hope you're all well this evening. First of all, apologies, I'm not Shah. Sadly, you've got the second-rate goalkeeper in tonight. Hopefully, I'll do a good enough job. If you haven't seen our social, Shah is taking a break, bit of a personal issue at the moment. So we send all our love to Shah and everything there. We wanted to keep the show going for everybody, so I'm here tonight. But fortunately, I have some knowledgeable non-league football people who will be giving you their wonderful opinions tonight. So let's see who we've got on the panel. It is my superb co-host tonight, Ben. Very excited to have you as co-host. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing all right, Sam. It's funny being on the other side of it for a change. I'm like, but obviously, as you say, we know we'd rather have Shah obviously, and I say I can only echo you as I send all our thoughts to her and her family at the moment. It's been a terrible time, and hopefully, hopefully we can do it justice at the very least. But apart from that, I'm doing all right, thank you.
Good. This is it. We're here to keep the wheels rolling as best we can, and also very exciting for me because it's the first time I've been on a podcast with Morgan as well. Morgan, lovely to see you tonight. How's things going? And as Shah would say, how has your week been?
It's been, obviously, it's only Monday, but it's been a weird one. York didn't play this weekend because of the FA Cup, so it's weird not having football. You're so used to it playing 46 games plus cup games and everything. You're so used to it, so it's weird having a weekend of not thinking about football, but it's been good.
What did you do? You just walk around the town and just what do I do on a Saturday? This is what happens.
I think I just sat around watching what was happening with everyone else. There was enough FA Cup football, but I think it was just refreshing my phone, seeing what other goals are going in, I think.
It was indeed. There was FA Cup, and we will be talking about the FA Cup. Don't you worry, indeed. And of course, first time meeting Rob on screen. I've met him in person before I got the chance to meet him on screen, which was a wonderful delight. Rob, how are you doing? How has your week been?
Yeah, really good. First of all, Sam, thanks for hosting jointly with Ben tonight. All our best wishes to Shah. And Shah, you take as long as you need, and be assured that unlike Mo Salah, even if you are not involved for 3 matches or more, you have earned your right to come back and host this podcast. We look forward to that day. Whenever it is, all the best to you, Shah. Lots of love. And I'm really good. And yeah, you're right, Sam. That's a bit bizarre, isn't it? Meeting in person first and then on the pod. It was the other way around for me with the other chaps. But good to join you guys.
Absolutely. Brilliant to have you with us tonight. And of course, the wonderful Joe is with us as well to complete the panel. Joe, how are you doing and how has your week been?
Yeah, not too bad, Sam. I think my week's going better than my weekend, that's for sure. Not usually that I'm on after an FA Cup weekend, because Torquay and FA Cup don't go, unfortunately. But yeah, good to be back on again. And nice to have some other football to talk about rather than Torquay.
This is it. Plenty of football to talk about. And it's not just our wonderful panel tonight. We have the superb chat as well. As if you're new to the chat, of course, get in your live match reports as well. Tell us what your thoughts and chats were from the game. We'll share them as we go through the evening. We have Spenny fan Chris who's joined us all the way from the other side of the world. The dedication to the pod. And Spenny fan Chris, while he's away in Charlotte, North Carolina, sending his best to Shah and the family as well. Thank you, Spenny fan Chris. Good evening to the wonderful Graham is here as well. We've got North Standers here. Evening to Steve. We've got evening to Danny. The Junior Morris fan club, where he's a bit of a legend around these parts with some of his comments, is here as well this evening. We've got Sean we may have a Sean. We've got Sean with us tonight, who also is giving us saying Brackley and Burton 1-1 in the 49th minute, of course, as the FA Cup continues this evening. But let's get straight on with it. Ben, shall I pass to you? Because there was some FA Cup action going on, wasn't there, this weekend? What's going on?
I mean, well, I think I'll leave the floor open, to be honest, to everyone. Obviously, there's been a few non-league sides involved, bit of good and bad fortunes, for both. But I think I'll start with you first, Morgan. Any standout results from the FA Cup this weekend?
I think I have to go to Slough Macclesfield. We speak about Scott Davis quite a lot on here and how much we love him, and it felt very unlucky with that game. It was quite a close one, obviously 2 6-tier teams, one from the north, one from the south, and it felt quite close. Obviously, Macclesfield penalty being a second yellow, whereas the Slough penalty to equalise only a first yellow, so that obviously massively changed the game. By the time it went to the next time playing against 10 men's always going to be difficult for Slough. I thought they put in a really good account of themselves. I did think the Slough penalty was a penalty. I know there was a few comments on the broadcast about whether it was a bit harsh or anything. It looked like he got tripped. Took it really well with it being so late on in the game. And then the third one feels a little bit harsh because it was a 2-1 game. It was a very close game. And when you're finishing in the 96th minute, it doesn't really reflect the game. It felt like a one-goal game. But yeah, Macclesfield did really well to get through, and they've been rewarded with a fantastic draw in the next round.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that the second goal, from James Edmondson, probably the goal of the round. I think, you just watch it from behind the goal. It literally couldn't have been any more top bins if he tried. I mean, Joe, how did you see it?
Yeah, I think Slough have had their recent history in the cup competitions, haven't they? So it's nice that Macclesfield obviously get their opportunity to go through. Obviously, a fantastic draw for them in getting the holders, Crystal Palace at home. I was kind of expecting that we might potentially see John Rooney having to go to Manchester United at one point. But yeah, they'll be happy with that draw. And yeah, a good opportunity for both of those teams to get through it and have a big earner against a good side.
Yeah, and also I think you've got to look at the fact that it's actually not only is it a big tie, it's against the holders of the cup as well. It's probably one of the best draws they probably could have been given, and it's at home. So, I mean, Rob, does that give them a slight advantage maybe?
Cool, I'm not sure about that. But yeah, no, I think you've done extremely well. I liked the fact, I don't know if you guys picked up on it as well, that obviously we'll cover one in a minute with Chelmsford and Western-super-Mare. I quite like the fact that there were certain ones where one of the National League clubs would have to progress. And of course, that was another one. Perhaps the most complete result, but probably the most completely expected shock was at Meadow Park, where Boreham Wood beat Newport County 3-0 and continued a rich history for that club and Luke Garrard in the FA Cup. It's now the 4th time they've reached the 3rd round, which is ridiculous. And they did so clinically, calmly, with ease. And look, let me just say this. I know we're talking about the FA Cup, but quality-wise, Boreham Wood are good enough to win the National League. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to, because I am concerned about the size of their squad and the depth. But what they're doing at the moment is no fluke. They have hit on the perfect cocktail. They're scoring goals for fun. They're not conceding many. The players they're bringing in are only improving. And Regan Booty, 3 goals, 3 assists since he joined. And I can't fault it. I watched them beat Aldershot 1-0 a few weeks ago. To be honest, it was a great effort from Aldershot to only lose 1-0. It could have been 3-4-5. They were so good, so slick. They've got the perfect balance of youth and experience, of technique and flair. I just running out of superlatives to talk about Boreham Wood. And all I would add to that is they've now got almost the perfect draw. They'll play the winner of Brackley and Burton. They're at home again. And yeah, it's not the big Premiership club away. And it doesn't need to be, because I think they'll go through again to the 4th round.
Yeah, I must admit, when I saw the game against Newport County on paper, I couldn't see anything further than a Boreham Wood win. You always would think, well, they're a Football League side, they're probably going to have a fairly good chance. But I never gave Newport home. To be honest, 3-0 was probably the outcome I actually expected, which just shows, the quality of the National League against sides. I think if they played a lot of sides in the bottom half of League 2, I think a lot of National League sides would do them, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that potentially Luke Garrard will be a little bit not disappointed with, but I think appreciative of, is the fact that they were on TV and the fact that they did dispatch a team in League 2 so comfortably. Obviously, we're coming up to the January, so there will no doubt have been teams watching that thinking, do you know what, I think I could do with a player like Abdul Malik in my side, or Matt Rush, who obviously scored again. I think that's the one thing he will look at and think, potentially the fact that they were in the limelight. There'll be 1 or 2 more admirers of his players. So it'll be interesting to see how he copes with that. But yeah, as Rob said, if they can keep that team together, then they've got a great chance. Albeit, I think with the caveat that I would be amazed if we're not covering Newport next year on the podcast, because they just had absolutely nothing. And Christian Fuchs stood there with his hands in his pockets most of the game. And unfortunately, his team were as pathetic as the lack of passion from the sidelines. So, yeah, Boreham Wood comfortably through. And as Rob said, you wouldn't put it past them to win another one.
Yeah, it's another terrific achievement. Sorry, Morgan, go ahead.
I was going to say, obviously on paper it's League Two versus non-league. There was 5 places between them, and I sent a message to one of my friends who takes some of the photos for Boreham Wood to get some inside scoops on some of their signings and stuff like that. And I sent a message being like, well, how many are you going to score? Is it going to be 3 or 4? It just felt like off the bat you could tell this isn't going to be your classic Football League versus non-league. Or are they going to edge it at home? Boreham Wood were going to win that every day of the week, twice on Sundays. Like, they were so much better from the off. Newport County are a bit of a mess. Obviously, I don't know if anyone's seeing they're using like AI to write match reports and stuff like that, and announcements and stuff like that. Club from the top to the bottom is a complete mess, and you can tell the bottom of the Football League, and it's just one of them. Boreham Wood have just come up from National League South, and Luke Garrard has the perfect recipe, as Rob was saying. With youth and experience, with quality, technique, flair. They know when to dig in. They know when to have that bit of grit. They're not one of those teams that has some flair, but you can roll over them with a bit of physicality. They don't have that. They've got this perfect recipe, and they could win the title this year. Newport, on the other hand, are bottom of the Football League and a mess from top to bottom. It felt like a matter of how many rather than is there going to be a competitiveness to this. It's how many are Boreham Wood going to win by.
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, it's obviously a terrific achievement for Boreham Wood, and then obviously as well for Macclesfield. But then you've got obviously on the other hand as well, Western-super-Mare. I think Rob touched on them. First time in their 138-year history, reaching the third round of the FA Cup. I mean, it was a game that both sides knew that they had the best opportunity of getting into the third round, and it's the Seagulls that took advantage. I mean, Rob, what a story for them.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, really. And sometimes you look, don't you, and you think your team went out in the previous round. You think, who would we have drawn if we'd have got through? Well, that would have been Aldershot's draw away to Chelmsford. It would have triggered memories of 2 years ago where we went there, or it might even be 3 years ago now. We went there and Mark Molesley got the sack following a defeat. Terrific for Western-super-Mare. League form tends to go out the window in FA Cups, but I think they were probably the side in the better league form as well. And probably, I've not seen all the goals, but possibly a contender for the best goal of the round was the first goal Louis Britton scored, which they got a bit confused on TV talking about. They were trying to say, was it Marco van Basten or was it the other Dutch striker whose name I can't even think of now? I think it was Van Basten, wasn't it? They were comparing it to, Joe, wasn't it?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, it was a great strike. I think he's been the one player really that stood out for Western this year. Last year it was Luke Coulson, but this year definitely Britton, and he himself actually stepping up to the level to sign for Western. He was at Bristol Manor Farm before this, so. Yeah, I mean, that's no surprise to me that they went and beat Chelmsford. Chelmsford are struggling to score goals at the moment, and Western have just got that bit of confidence about them. Obviously, they have had the bad news this week. I believe that James Dodd, who actually signed a new contract recently and turned down a move to Eastleigh, has been ruled out with what I believe is an ACL injury. So that's a real blow for them. But they've gone and had a couple of midfielders in Harry Kyton and Adam May. And they're looking in good form. They're certainly not missing Scott Bartlett at the moment, and Scott Rogers is doing a cracking job. Obviously, been given the chance to go it alone as a number one, and they're doing really well.
Yeah, I think that's a big credit as well to Scott Rogers because there have been a lot of expectations still on Western to carry on from what Scott Bartlett had left them with. In a great league position. But, the fact that it's in their own hands at the moment to go top of the league, which, is absolutely incredible for a club of their size, and then also it's in a difficult part of the country as well where they struggle to attract players with, your Bristol Cities and Bristol Rovers nearby. But again, they're starting to, really build something there, and there's something really special there. But, again, Morgan, it's a great achievement. But what about Chelmsford? It's spent a lot of money in the summer. It's not quite going to plan. A few supporters actually calling for Angelo Harrop's head actually at the moment, which is probably a big surprise. I mean, are they in a difficult place at the moment, Chelmsford?
I'm not sure, because when you think about them, obviously they had that decent run. They beat Braintree to get to this Western Supermare game, and you're thinking, all right, well, you've just beaten a team. Yes, they're at the bottom of the National League, but a Braintree team that are Essex rivals, and you're thinking, all right, well, that's actually a really good result, and they beat them with such ease. And I know we've spoken on here about their strike force this season with players like Lyle Taylor. It's like, all right, they should be better than this, but if they're struggling to score goals, they're going out 2-0 at home to a fellow National League South side when it could have set up a massive third-round draw. It's a bit disappointing for them, and if you've got fans calling for Harrop's head, it's not good when it could have been only a month ago. You're thinking, well, they can kick on. They've just beaten an Essex rival from the league above. Here's where they go from now. Went out the start of December, and you're saying that the fans are calling for his head. It's a month isn't very long in football, but it's clearly spiraled a little bit down at Chelmsford, and they're hoping they can turn around soon.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I would add on that is I look at Chelmsford a little bit this year like Torquay last year, in that Angelo Harrop, obviously a manager that they went out to go and recruit, who they back, that's been successful at this level before. He's had to build a completely new team. They only had 2 players from last year that have actually followed through to this year in Archie Tamplin and Finley Barbrook. Harry Barbrook. And one thing Angela Harrop is trying to do is trying to make them solid. They are struggling to score goals, but when you've got a completely new team, it takes time to, hit your stride. And one thing I would say to Chelmsford fans is keep the faith, because they've got an owner there who is obviously backing Angelo Harrop, and they've got a really talented coach in Angelo Harrop that has done well in this league before. So, yeah, I think any of their fans that were expecting them to go and get promoted this year, potentially they might have to temper those expectations. But it's a rebuild for them after Robbie Simpson leaving last year, and they'll be fine. It just might take a little bit of time. So I'd keep the faith. I wouldn't lose hope too early. They'll be all right.
Yeah, I know. I think just like going to the chat, I know Graham's put a comment in, and it probably makes sense. Probably the biggest, positive that Chelmsford could probably take from losing Saturday is the fact that they didn't miss out on what was probably the most glamorous tie they could have got. Unless you've been to Grimsby before, so obviously it's a tough one for probably West Ham to take getting this far in that. But again, probably a winnable time for them maybe in the next round. It's going to be obviously hard on the road for them, but a couple of leagues separate them. They'll be right up for it, won't they? Yeah, definitely. I mean, so going back to the chat as well, I think Steve obviously went to the Slough Macclesfield game. He's actually sent his match report in. So it's going to be 10 times luck in the second round, but I'll never believe that either were penalties. I think Kiki won the ball, and his first yellow was dubious at best. But Macclesfield are a good side, and I don't mind going out to a goal that level. That's probably a fair comment, to be honest. That's actually the first thing I thought of when they did manage to, Edmondson did manage to hit the top bins. I thought, you're going to go out in the FA Cup. You want to go out to a good goal from about 30 yards out, and what a strike it was. So, absolutely fair play to them.
Proper top bins, wasn't it?
Yeah, you look at it from behind the goal, it was absolutely quality in that. Like, you'd probably think, maybe the keeper could have moved a bit quicker, but he was never getting there. You could have 2 goalkeepers in there, and that would have never have got that. It was a cracking strike. Obviously, another game, obviously, and but maybe a little bit misfortune. Sutton United against Shrewsbury. Obviously, Sutton, managed to grab themselves late equaliser. Was it they scored late equaliser? Was it, or was it Shrewsbury? Wasn't it? I think it was the late equaliser. And then obviously a big defensive mishap at the back for them. I can tell the manager Ricky, he's trying to play a similar way to what he is at Worthing. And I've seen it a few times where when it doesn't come off, it can end very badly. And unfortunately, it's his way of playing. It's probably cost him the game in the end. Would you say?
Yeah, I think so. I think he will be frustrated, because I think the game was certainly there for them. Obviously, Kai Jennings opening the scoring for them, who's been terrific, and then it was a real, full circle moment for him, because it was ultimately his pass that let John Marquis in for the goal. So yeah, he'll be disappointed that one didn't see the game out in 90 minutes because they were so close, and then that they couldn't potentially go and win it in extra time. Certainly the manner of conceding will be disappointing, but I think you've got to take heart from the fact that Shrewsbury are a league above them, and it's just those one or two moments that has potentially put Shrewsbury through. So they'll be pleased with their showing. And Agata's done a good job there so far. They're in a good vein of form in the league. They're out of the drop zone. And yeah, I don't think he'll be too disheartened with that.
I think one thing I might be a bit disappointed by is the red cards, because he's going to miss Ogbonna and Eccleston in his next league games, because it was a bit of a chaotic game with 3 red cards, goes to extra time, 3 goals. It's kind of what you'd expect in a kind of football league versus non-league FA Cup tie. You've got red cards, you've got extra time, you've got a bit of chaos. You've got a player scoring for the non-league team, then giving the ball away for the football league team to go and take the lead. It had almost everything you kind of expect from a non-league tie, but I think, as you've said, Chris Haggett he's focusing on the league, and he's done a really good job to get them out of where they were on Steve Morrison. So I don't think he'll be too disheartened, but to miss 2 players through suspension is a bit of a kick in the teeth.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a couple of other results as well from the weekend. Cheltenham Town 6, Buxton 2. Buxton were winning at half-time as well, took the lead twice, and I think, again, one of those where I would say the fitness showed, but again, we'll say Buxton are full-time side themselves, but, the quality does tend to show sometimes, and I think Cheltenham pretty clearly got a rocket up their backside at half-time, so I think that's probably showing where they are. Also, Gateshead 0, Walsall 2, and Blackpool 4, Carlisle United 0. Carlisle United 1, sorry. Gateshead, again, it's a tough time down for them. You would have thought this cup would have been a good distraction from them away from their troubled league form at the moment. And I don't think Luke's in the chat, so I don't think we've got a match prop from him tonight. But again, that was always going to be a tough task for them though, against a side that at the top end of League Two.
Yeah, bottom end of National League, or almost bottom 5 of the National League against top of League Two. It's never going to be easy. They huffed and puffed, but you looked up and. I looked up in the 80th, 90th minute. I was like, we're already near the end. It seemed like the game had kind of passed them by. Both goals were pretty soft from what I remember. They didn't really test anyone. And it just kind of felt like another Gateshead loss. If you look up and they've conceded a few weak goals and they lose, and it's like, all right, you don't really expect anything against the League Two team, but a bit more effort and a bit more fight. It felt like it just kind of slipped away. And obviously, it's a League Two team. Had they lost to a team in the National League that are in the bottom half, maybe struggling, like Sutton that we've just mentioned, it's like, all right, you expect better. So Walsall's a bit of a free hit, but you just kind of, I don't know, it felt like a bit of a whimper to go out on when you've made it to this round of the FA Cup. You won one game away from a possible game against Newcastle or Sunderland that would completely change them as a football club, and then they just kind of went out without any expectations. Like, all right, they're probably going to lose, and then they lose in quite I'm not sure what the word is, but kind of standard fashion. There wasn't any excitement or drama to go with it.
They haven't won at home since August, Gateshead, and that was a 4-3 win against Aldershot. They're in wretched form. There's no vibe there. Football's very cyclic, isn't it? About momentum, and they've lost various managers. They've lost quality players. They had a crowd of less than 500 Gateshead fans just a couple of weeks ago against Boreham Wood. So they're really, really difficult times, and they're a side that could have done massively with a little bit of a cup run, as you say. But as it is, they'll have to, and they'll need to concentrate on their league form, because they're actually probably that mid-table side that's dropping down dangerously close to the relegation positions at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair. I mean, is there anyone else got anything added on the FA Cup at all, or we feel like we've covered it?
I feel like Carlisle. Oh, sorry, Joe. Carry on.
The other thing I was going to mention was obviously it ultimately wasn't a good result for them, but a nice day out for Wealdstone. And good moment for Sam Cox. Obviously going back there this season, I think one or two people raised an eyebrow that he did go back there. But he's done a terrific job so far, sitting in the top half of the National League, one of the lower budgets in the division. And he's able to or he has been able to put together a really competitive team. And that'll be a proud day for him, because it didn't go all that well at Oxford City. And obviously then wasn't kept on before that with Wealdstone the first time round. So it's one of those days where, yes, the performance and the results perhaps not what you want, but you have to realise, just how far they've come in such a short space of time.
100%. 100%. I think that leads us actually, Sam the man, take us to the National League, I'm pretty sure, the next slide.
I can indeed, my friend. There you go. Straight to the National League.
So we'll go through some of the results. Well, I mean, we'll start off actually. Rob, before we talk Aldershot and their, dramatic win on Saturday, any standout results for you?
I think my eye was taken to early in the day to Morecambe 0, Boston 3. Boston had a pretty poor November. In fact, their season is a bit like this at the moment so far. Thankfully for them, there's been enough good periods that they're not in any undue trouble, as they were this time last year, really, really struggling. But yeah, that was the half-time scoreline as well, 3-0 to Boston. And it's what's really going on at Morecambe is my question, because it felt like they were turning a corner. They got a couple of clean sheets. They picked up a couple of wins, and you wondered if finally, Ashvir Singh Johal was delivering on his promises. He said, "Judge us in a couple of months' time" or whatever. But they can't quite seem to be getting any consistency at the moment. And I think, with the greatest of respect to Boston, I think that would have been a home game that Morganton would have been targeting for a really good chance of a win, and it just didn't go their way. And sadly for Morecambe as a football club, who've been through sheer hell, as Jen often does talk about when she comes on, it just seems to be one thing after another, doesn't it? Because now they've had one of their directors, I think it was the marketing and communications director, has now lost his directorship, and amongst other things that have been taken away from him legally due to reasons I won't go into. And we're a football podcast; we don't need to talk about that. But today, or in the last 24 hours, 2 more Morecambe directors have resigned as well, haven't they? I don't know if anyone's got any more on that.
Yeah, I think that's the more worrying one for Morecambe, is that it's 2 directors that have been there through all the struggles. They've sort of been the one or 2 shining lights really to keep the hope for Morecambe. And the fact that they've obviously moved on, I don't know what's gone on, but I imagine they're probably trying to distance themselves from what's going on at the moment. It is a worrying time for Morecambe, and I think if you'd have said when they completed that takeover that it would be in this situation, I don't think many Morecambe fans would have believed you, really. I know Rob obviously said that the manager came out and said, "Judge us in a couple of months." Well, unfortunately, the table doesn't lie. We are judging them, and they're a pretty poor football team. Unfortunately, the goals have dried up. When he came in, they looked a decent side going forward, but now they can't score a goal, and they're conceding goals at a rate and not. So that is all the hallmarks of a season that is only going one way. And unfortunately, it looks like it's going to be one in the National League North unless something turns around.
I think, sorry, go for it.
I'm not surprised, actually, though, that Boston won the game. I actually saw them a couple of weeks ago when they played Yeovil, and I actually thought they were a pretty decent side. Yes, they didn't get the result in that game, but certainly first half they looked good. They moved the ball quite well. Leonard John Lewis is still a handful at this level, and Dylan Hill was the one sprinkling of quality that I obviously saw. He got on the score sheet for Boston, and yeah, I think that's a good result for them, because their performances have perhaps warranted a little bit more. I think reading some of the Boston fans' opinions is that they've perhaps been playing a little bit better than the results have certainly merited. And yeah, a good win.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's been a hard balance at the moment, really, for Morecambe, because where a lot of fans have been pleased just to have a football club this year, it turned very quickly because at the end of the day, they knew survival was their aim this year, and obviously that hasn't changed, but it's just so difficult to see where, obviously not only where the goals are going to come from, but how they're keeping it at the other end as well, because that's the 52nd goal now they've conceded this year, and even not even been halfway through the season yet, they're on course for over 100 goals conceded the way they keep going. So it's not a good place here at the moment. Obviously, I think I saw as well a clip on Twitter where a few fans were going for Ash saying about why you're not going to cut the fans, and obviously I can't take the fact, obviously what he said, whether it was actually taken out of context maybe, but obviously he seemed to respond a little bit. I mean, the pressure seems to be quite on him at the moment, doesn't it, Morgan?
Yeah, no, it definitely does. And he has been thrown kind of into the deep end. He'd never managed anyone. And it's something that when you've had Derek Adams in charge, who's been there, done it for so long, he knows non-league football so incredibly well, to then throw this inexperienced coach. And I know they had this vision of it all working out, but it was a hell of a risk, and it's really not paid off. I think one of the only silver linings they can almost take is they're going through so much of the club. They had so much wrong with the previous ownership. Then Punjab have come in thinking, all right, we're in a good place. They're looking like they're about to do back-to-back relegations. I think one of the only silver linings is Scunthorpe have done back-to-back relegations and have come back from it. We did back-to-back relegations, have come back from it. Scunthorpe had times when they didn't have players being paid, and obviously I think we had a month or two at times when we had some ownership issues where people weren't being paid. Everyone's being paid at Morecambe, and I know that shouldn't be the baseline, that should be the bare minimum. They're going to go down almost definitely because they can't keep it out and they can't score. They're 3 points from safety. Somehow they're still just about in touch. But I don't see where it turns around. I think one of the only silver linings is they had so much focus on them at times last year when it was all going wrong. And then Morecambe put themselves on the map last year, so now they're in National League and struggling again. It might be a case where they go through 2 takeovers in 2 years. Punjab come in, they have so much backlash, and everyone says, this is completely failing, get out of our club, you're going to relegate us. And then someone who actually cares about the club is going to come in, save them, and they do a Scunthorpe and come up, and they're kind of alive again. We had issues, we just got 96 points, we're going for the title. Scunthorpe are now in the playoffs after their issues. There is almost a precedent of clubs doing back-to-backs and then rising from the ashes. We don't want them to turn into a Macclesfield who are now happier in the 6th tier and have Palace in the cup, or Bury who are getting 2,000 fans in the 8th tier. We don't want them to turn into that. But as Graham said, the owner said they were going to communicate and you were going to get sick and tired of hearing from us, and then they've been silent for months. It's really not good. I think what might end up happening is we see another ownership change at Morecambe. Someone who cares about the club comes in and they end up doing well in National League North next season. I think their season's a write-off, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I would add on that point, that the person that's commented there is every owner that comes into a football club will tell you that they're going to communicate, they're going to be, get the community at heart, that they're going to spend money, etc. Every owner that comes into a football club says that. And ultimately, all you can judge them on is their actions. And unfortunately, so far, they're not painting the picture that they perhaps were sold.
Yeah, and just following on as well, what Graham's just actually put beforehand, saying what is happening at Morecambe is simply more like frying pan to fire with the new ones, getting serious Blackburn vibes there, worrying, and it is such a tough one. It's just, I think they need probably to get this season out of the way, because obviously, look, it was a rush job for them. They had to get a squad together in no time at all. And that's the thing. They've cobbled basically a squad together to just get them results at the end of the day. I think if they did have to go down, then I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world for him. Obviously, it won't go down with supporters because they've had enough pain as it is over the last few years. But you look at the likes, Stockport, Scunthorpe at the start of them, particularly Stockport. I know obviously they've got new ownership, they've got money coming in, but they push right back up the ladder. Sometimes you need to drop to your lowest to end up getting back to the top. I mean, Yeovil, another good example as well. They've sucked down to National League South, but slowly, progressively, they're starting to get back to where they probably should be. So it's tough times for them, but I'm sure that I say they'll come through it. It might just take a bit more time there. Let's go back into a bit more positive news. Rob, Aldershot Town 2, Altrincham 1. Quite the late story there, wasn't it?
It was a late story, but the story, ridiculously, until late on, was that another improved performance, a very good one, a sustained good one from start to finish, but ridiculously still no goals. And I literally remember thinking about 86, 87 minutes, oh no, I cannot interview John Coleman for a sixth time on the trot after losing the game by 1 goal that they've played quite well in. And Morgan, bless you, you know, you were really complimentary last week about that first half performance at York. At the end of the day, they were on top then and didn't score when they were on top. And then when York got on top, they did score. And that's football, isn't it? But, you know, sometimes when you're down there, nothing goes for you. And Aldershot had about 12 chances and not scored. And Alty took the lead on the hour mark with their second chance of the game. And it was a really, really good goal, actually. Ollie Crankshaw, great run and finish. Fair play to him for that. But Alty had been quite disappointing for me on the day. I didn't mind that, by the way. And then, yeah, Ryan Jones has a shot from distance. Keeper makes a brilliant save onto the post. And it actually falls. There's 6 or 7 players there, but it falls nicely into the path of Hadi Gandor. He tucks it away. And you think, oh, my God, we've got something. We've got a point. We haven't had a point for... If we'd have lost the game, it would have been a 99-year history equaling 9th consecutive league defeat, which would have been unthinkable, especially given the good performance. But then probably the best way ever to win a football match, isn't it? Is to be 1-0 down after 89 minutes, come back and score twice. And it was a thing of beauty from Tyler Frost, who has had a wretched season. He's been out injured since pre-season when he was taken out by George Frankham at Dorking. He's hardly played. He came on, he burst down the wing, he cut in, curled it in off the post. The EBB went crazy. The East Bank went crazy. I lost it in commentary. As much as I'm there, and I tried to put a little bit of high emphasis on the Brackley, the Alty goal when it went in. You know, I try to do that, but what you can't do when your team scores is keep the emotion out of it. And yeah, I pretty much lost it. When the final whistle went, I don't mind admitting this actually. As someone who did not cry when we went to Wembley, when we got to Wembley, and who did not cry when we won at Wembley, I wiped away a tear at the end of that game because finally the most wretched run in the club's history was over and we'd got 3 points. And that's all it is, of course. It was 3 points on a weekend when Morecambe lost and Braintree lost and others didn't play. So we made a bit of ground. There's a long way to go. But things are, I hope and I pray, looking up at Aldershot.
But the thing is, though, with that is, obviously, now they're going to FA Trophy action this weekend. Would you prefer to have another league game, though, obviously, after picking up a result like that?
Really good question. I would have, actually, and I think probably the team would, the manager would, but you dealt what you dealt. It's a tough draw away in the FA Trophy, away against, usually a top half National League side. And it's also one in Eastleigh that Aldershot don't have a great record against generally. Eastleigh tend to come out on top against Aldershot kind of 2 times out of 3. We did beat them in the FA Trophy a couple of years ago on penalties, actually. And so that will be in the supporters' minds, but not really the players or the manager. I asked John Coleman afterwards, similar question, Ben, to what you asked me. And he said, look, it's not the ideal next game, but we desperately need momentum now. And to be honest, they'll take it if they can get another good feeling, a second back-to-back victory. Then that will take them on into the league. He did say it's a break from the pressure of the league, and when you're in the bottom 4 in the league, in any division, a cup tie coming around is actually usually a bit of a breath of fresh air. So not perfect timing and a tough game, but they'll go to Eastleigh in good spirits. And I don't know. I know they didn't play this weekend, Joe, but how are you seeing Eastleigh right now? Scott Bartlett's gone there. A little bit of a bounce initially, but how would you say that he's doing and they're doing?
Yeah, I mean, it has been a bit of an underwhelming one for me. Obviously, a bit of an odd one, really, because Chris Todd went in there as director of football. obviously then recruited Scott Bartlett from Western, and I can't say for certain, but my guess is that if Todd had stayed at Yeovil, they'd have wanted to go and get Bartlett at Yeovil. Chris Todd has now actually left the club after only a couple of weeks. And the form, certainly in the league, has not been great for Eastleigh. So, yeah, it's a bit bizarre. They've had a lot of incomings, a lot of younger players on loan. And I think Eastleigh are in a situation whereby they're just trying to find their feet under a new manager. Obviously, Scott Bartlett is a really, really talented coach, did really well at Western. Obviously, got them promoted, had them in and around the playoffs. And he is going to do well at Eastleigh, I think. But certainly at the moment, there's a couple of teething problems around, finding perhaps their identity, because under Kelvin Davis and certainly the Eastleigh teams in recent years, you've associated them with being a fairly direct team, playing into Paul McCallum and, using his strengths in the air. Whereas Scott Bartlett is a coach who at Western has developed a reputation for being a very good passing coach, likes his teams to get the ball down and play. And I think that's always the hardest type of football to implement straight off the bat. So, yeah, they'll be okay in time, but certainly at the moment, they're just perhaps taking a bit of adjustment.
I think they've also struggled with fixtures, because you say they had a bit of a bounce, but then 18th of October they lose away at Borrowwood. Well, we've spoken about how good they are. 21st they draw at home to Scunthorpe, which I think that was one of the replayed games, but that isn't. We know how good Scunthorpe are. They're in the playoffs. It's a good team. Then they beat Morecambe on the 29th of October. We've said how poor they are, but they get the win. Since then they've played top of League 2 Walsall, away at Sutton team that are on good form, at home to Oz, away at Carlisle, at home to Hartlepool, and then away at Rochdale. Seems like they've just hit a wall of really tough games. Hartlepool under Nicky Featherstone have looked great, and we can get onto that in a second. We're scoring loads. Chris Haggart has done wonders at Sutton so far. Rochdale are top. Getting draws against Eastleigh and Scunthorpe as well as beating Morecambe's not bad. They've just been hit with. They're trying to find their feet, as you say, like a few teething problems with a new identity and everything, with a wall of horrible fixtures. Coming up, they've got obviously Aldershot in the Cup, which is a nice break, as Rob said. And then they're away at Gateshead, who are struggling. It's a long journey, but it's away at a team that are really struggling before playing Woking on Boxing Day in a bit of a, not quite derby game, but Neil Ardley's teams aren't easy to beat, but it's easier to play them than Carlisle, York, Hartlepool or Rochdale. So hopefully in the new year they'll start turning it around. But I think they've just been met with a horrible wall of fixtures when in the middle of the season they're trying to figure out what's going on. Obviously the Chris Todd situation of being there and then leaving after a few weeks doesn't help. But it's just the fact that Scott Bartlett's trying to figure out who this team is and what he wants it to look like, when just before the season starts they lose their best player in Tyree Shade, who has scored tonight against Brackley twice. Paul McCullum hasn't exactly hit the heights that we've seen in the last few years. Aaron Blair comes in from Maidstone. Obviously, Ben, you know how good he is, but he's trying to find his feet in the National League. You look at a front three that could have been excellent, and now Paul McCullum's not the same, and Tyree Shade's in League One. And then they've changed manager, and then they have the wall of fixtures just before Christmas. It's just, everything seems to be hitting them at the wrong time, and they're currently sat 17th. They're 4 points above the drop. They should be okay once they figure it out, and they're kind of lucky that there are some worse teams in and around them. But I feel like Eastleigh have been just dealt a bit of a rough hand. They should be able to figure it out, and I think they'll be fine. But it's just, I think there needs to be a bit of context about their struggles.
Yeah. All we're going to say in that matter is, Sam, you leave that Aldershot bus alone at the weekend, because it's not going to do him any favours otherwise. You troublemaker.
I'm doing nothing. I saved that one for Shah. I use it once a season, and she got her win.
Just a question as well for you, Rob, before we move on. Legit question, Rob, from Spenny fan Chris. Why are Aldershot just having a bad season so far?
Oh my goodness! The two biggest reasons are the biggest injury crisis I've ever known at any football club. So there was 1 week when they had 16 players out injured, and leading up to that, it was always in double figures. And until about 2 weeks ago, it was still in double figures. It's gradually getting sorted out. They've had a manager up and leave as well. Incidentally, I could relate to a lot of what you were just saying for Morgan there about Eastleigh to Aldershot. Similar thing, trying to bed in a new manager with the most ridiculous fixture list. So actually, when those two sides meet next week, they've been in a similar scenario, haven't they? I guess it was. You say it was Spenny fan Chris who asked the question.
It was, yes.
Yeah, he's probably scratching his head a little bit more than most because obviously he witnessed the FA Trophy final and probably thought, well, that's a team that's going to go on and kick on next year. But sadly, it hasn't been able to. Well, we haven't got a long enough show for me to go into every reason, but I think the manager changed, the injuries, serious injuries. All teams have injuries. And sometimes when you hear anybody like me start talking about injuries, you go, oh, for God's sake, get on with it. We all get them. But it was as high as 16 at one point. But yeah, what more importantly, Spenny fan Chris, we can see some improvements now. They've been in patches of games. Morgan saw it 10 days ago, whatever it was, for nearly half a game. And on Saturday, they played well from pretty much start to finish. And that really encouraged me and the Shots fans. So hopefully better times ahead. Big fight ahead, though. I mean, and I really like the fact that John Coleman is embracing that. He said, absolutely, if we don't start getting some points and some decent form soon, we're really going to start to run out of time and run out of games. He's realistic about that. And I like that. I like the fact that he's been in a relegation scrap. He's been in relegation scraps before and come through them. He's generally always come through them. One or two of them probably looking more severe than this one is. But anyway, enough about Aldershot Town. Let's move on.
Well, that's the thing. Let's move on. Joe, any standout results for you from the weekend's action?
Yeah, I suppose Yeovil winning away from home. Not something we've been able to say a lot over the last 18 months. But yeah, 2 wins from 2 for Billy Rowley. Certainly going rather nicely. 4 goals in 2 games. I don't have the exact figures, but I think they probably went 5 or 6 before that without scoring a goal. And to score 4 in 2 games is certainly positive. Another goal for Luke McCormick. He's really benefited from Billy Rowley coming in. A very attacking coach. He was played in more of a defensive role under Mark Cooper. But Luke McCormick is a number 10. He wants to get forward. He wants to score goals. Terrific finish. 3 in 2 now for him. And obviously that clean sheet, which I don't think has ever been a problem for Yeovil. I've always maintained that they've got really good defenders in Morgan Williams and Jake Wannell. For me, still 2 of the better centre-halves in the league. And yeah, obviously going to Hartlepool, who, it's just their luck that they decide before the game to get Nicky Featherstone the permanent manager's job. And as is always the way when you give a manager a permanent job, he then goes and loses the next game. So, it's certainly the start that Yeovil fans would have been hoping for. They'll obviously now be without Morgan Williams, who I believe was sent off after the final whistle for a scuffle after the game. But yeah, 2 wins from 2. Obviously, we've got the Junior Moraes fan club in that always pops in. Well, I see he's rebranded because Junior Moraes has actually left Yeovil now and gone to Hemel. So we've got the Brett McGavin fan club instead. But a good start for Billy Rowley. I think he said last week against Boston is in the first couple of weeks as a manager, it doesn't really matter what you play like. It's ultimately about getting a couple of wins on the board. And he's ultimately done that.
Yeah, been a terrific start for Yeovil. Obviously, like I say, Billy Rowley, a super Billy Rowley, Brett McGavin fan club says. Like I said, 2 wins from 2. Although it's going to be 2 wins from 3 because we're beating them in the FA Trophy at the weekend. So get that one ready. I've just shot myself in the foot there. But no, terrific start. Like I say, Nicky Featherstone, he's got a bit of a tough job on his hands. But I think you look at that squad, and I think maybe give him a little bit of time. Morgan, do you still think they've got a chance of an absolute chance of the playoffs still?
Who, Hartlepool?
Yes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, they were 7 unbeaten before this game. It just kind of felt that they ended up playing a Billy Rowley Yeovil team that had just kind of turned around their form. But no, Hartlepool looked really good under Nicky Featherstone. Under Simon Grayson, they were pretty good defensively, but it didn't kind of work out when he got sacked. Nicky Featherstone's coming, they were pretty similar. They were good defensively. I think if you exclude the Sutton 3-3, I think it was 3-3 draw against Sutton when he first came in. If you exclude that, I think they conceded 6 in 13 or something like that. It was a really good defensive record under Nicky Featherstone in his interim period. I can't remember the exact numbers, but I remember looking at it. It was really good defensively. This is just a bit of a blip, and I feel like they've just hit the wrong team who Billy Riley's come in attacking coach. And obviously it's that curse that you said of interim manager becomes permanent and you lose. But Hartlepool are going to be in that conversation. I think the top 7 is going to stay the top 7. I think there is a bit of a barrier to entry, but if anyone's going to make it, Hartlepool are in that conversation, as well as teams like Wealdstone. Halifax aren't too far out. Like, they're in a conversation. I think the top 7 is too good. Southend are at the bottom of that, and I think Southend are excellent. So I think it is going to be hard to get past Southend or Scunthorpe, and then the top 5 are ridiculously good. I think Hartlepool will be one of them to push it, but I think it's a positive sign where, as for the last few years, Hartlepool are one of those clubs that when is Rogerson going to light the touch paper fire and it's all going to fall apart, to get a new young coach in and hopefully try something different. Because they've had John Askey, they've had Simon Grayson, they've had some of these older managers that feel like they're not really going anywhere. Nicky Featherstone might just put that little bit of heart and spirit back into a Hartlepool club that definitely needs it after so many years of kind of nothing since they got relegated back out the Football League.
Yeah.
Can I make a quick additional point on that? Morgan, I agree with everything you said. And I think we touched on it last week on the podcast that top 7's got a bit of a feel about it. Like it all kind of fits, like it might not need to change. Do you know what the biggest argument against the fact that top 7 isn't going to change? No one's going to drop out. No one's going to come in. There's half a season of football left.
Yeah. There's a lot of football to be played.
Yeah, and I think, you know, so kind of maybe as a group, it's come across earlier like we've said, Morecambe are done. Morecambe could have a change of form, a change of manager, a change of board. Who knows? You know, there is so long to go, and I think it's good. You know, it's been thrilling so far. It never lets you down, does it? The National League. Whether it's the title race, the playoff race, or the relegation. And yeah, that's the frightening thing. We're not even halfway yet, although some clubs are pretty close to it now.
Yeah, I know some teams will fall at some point, whether it be at the top, and like I say, some teams will rejuvenate at the bottom. Like I say, so much football to be played. With that, Morgan, is there any standout results for you over the weekend?
Where do I go from here? Because there's a few that I want that you can talk about. I think Rochdale Southend, just for the fact that it's still not being played as a fixture, despite the fact they've tried it 3 or 4 times now, or 2 or 3 times, sorry. It's a bit ridiculous. The pitch looked bad from the photos I saw, and it wasn't really rolling, so I fully understand the decision the ref came to. But it's just more minutes in your legs. They've played basically a full game. What was it, the 80th minute that got called off in? They played most of a fixture there. It's not like they played 10 minutes and it's like, all right, we've wasted a journey. They've had to go from Essex to Greater Manchester to play most of a game, put all those minutes in their legs just for it to mean nothing. Obviously, Rochdale will be frustrated because a 2-1 win against a tough Southend team's being ruled out. But it's more about their pitch. I know they put some photos of some tractors on the pitch and it's all being ripped up, and they're going to Accrington for a couple of games. It's just more minutes in the legs. We've just said how long of the season there is left. You've got top 5 that are all good enough to win this title and have so much quality. The last thing you want is more minutes in your legs that you don't need. And I think that's going to be the killer. Had they even kicked off, it might have been one of those late pitch inspections where everyone complains, the fans have travelled. But at least the players haven't had to kick a ball around for 80 minutes on the tough pitch, because these National League games are so intense and these two teams will have gone at each other for 80 minutes trying to win a game. To then have all that effort mean nothing, it's going to really hurt both teams, especially Rochdale when they've got other games that they're going to have to catch up on. I know Shah talks about quite often of how last season it caught up to them. Is the same going to happen this year?
Yeah. I mean, that is the big worry. We've got Danny in the chat who's sending his match report actually from the game. But they'll be Southend, very wet. Match was a farce. Should not have even started in that weather, knowing what the pitch is like. We just need to get this new drainage and relay the pitch and move on. Grateful to our owners for saving us last year and now helping afford reported 1.5 million for this. Fuming we lost Sam Beckwith to injury for nothing. Cardwell returning looks a boost for Southend. It's like, I think I listened to Jim McNulty's interview after the game, and he said the biggest criminal is like, you could see in his face that he's just he's been his biggest battle this year is not the players or the teams that he's been playing against. It's his own pitch, and it is becoming a bit of a, I'd say, a bit really sticky situation for Rochdale. And that's like I say, Morgan, I think they could be the victims of their own downfall again. You hope not. Obviously, we hope, obviously, for Shah's sake, it's not, because they've been absolutely brilliant, Rochdale, and what they've done. So they came back from a goal down, goals from Ryan East and Taran Alarakia, put them 2-1 ahead. And then, I think it was the Southend, as I saw a video earlier of Southend fans being, actually quite happy, actually, with the referee blowing the whistle. I think with 10 minutes to go, they thought, well, they probably weren't going to get anything out of that. Now they know they're probably going to get another go at it, because there's probably no chance of it, being the result standing, even though they've played over 75 minutes. So it's, it's a difficult one for them to take. But again, like, what are our feelings on, Rochdale and not say the pitch situation, because it is ultimately cost them huge points at this stage of the season. Yeah, I think that's probably the place to go. I mean, obviously, just other results as well in the National League. Forest Green Rovers 1, Solihull Moors 1, FC Halifax Town 4, Braintree 0. Very good with the Halifax, and Braintree is sort of struggling now down bottom. Now they're really getting dragged into that relegation battle. And then also Scunthorpe United 3, Tamworth 1. Scunthorpe keeping up some good momentum and still staying in that playoff picture. Anyone else got anyone to add on the National League at all? Or you feel like we've all done with that?
Just quickly on Halifax,
yes.
Really, isn't it incredible that a low-budget National League side now under 3 different managers continue to keep overachieving? It's incredible, really. Obviously, Chris Millington's now at Solihull and started pretty well there, but he got Halifax, didn't he? Am I right in thinking a couple of times into the playoffs? Before that, of course, they got there under the manager that got the job at Barrow, whose name escapes me.
Pete Wild.
Yeah, Pete Wild. And under Adam Lakeland, they haven't found by any means perfect consistency, but it's more good than bad. Aldershot lost by a similar score there. I think it might have been 4-1. And I came away a bit begrudging that day, if I'm honest. I thought, well, Halifax didn't look all that. But you know what they are? They're incredibly efficient. And I remember efficient teams winning this league. Like when Macclesfield won the league, they didn't have a wonderful side. They didn't take the league by storm. They just had the right players in the right positions, good technique, good tactics, didn't concede many goals and got games won. And Adam Lakeland came in with a bit of potential and a bit of promise. And I think largely, Joe, he's largely delivering on that, isn't he? I mean, it's not perfect, but it's not going to be if you're a low-budget team in the National League. But they're on track to finish around the top 10 again.
Yeah, I think with Halifax, they're the sort of club that you've got to just trust the process, because they have to sign a lot of younger players who perhaps take time to adjust, in the same way that Wild and Millington have done, and the same with Lakeland this summer. They're going to have younger players who perhaps have been released elsewhere or who are stepping up to the level. The likes of Jack Jenkins, who was on the score sheet, released by Leeds. The likes of Will Harris, that's only stepping up to this division for the first time. You've just got to trust that you can actually improve those players. They have managed to identify another really good coach. I know he didn't get Kings Lynn promoted last year, but I think the overriding feeling was that he was a good coach. He did a fantastic job at Curzon Ashton in getting them competitive in and around the playoffs. It speaks volumes of how well they are run, Halifax, that 3 different managers with 3, I wouldn't say different teams, but certainly with key players having left in all 3 summers. The fact that they keep producing, it speaks volumes of how well they are run and how well they recruit.
4 different goal scorers this weekend as well, which I thought was a nice little touch.
Yeah, all the best feeling that one. All right, I think that brings us on to the league table. So It's heating up now, with teams. Obviously, some teams not in action, with the likes of York not involved. So, and obviously Forest Green dropping huge points. So it now looks like we're top of the table. But for our lovely Shah, it's Rochdale at the top with 46 points. Second are Forest Green Rovers with 46 points as well. Goal difference of 18. Carlisle United are in third with 46 points, just one goal difference below that. York City in fourth with 45 points. Boreham Wood in fifth with 44 points. Scunthorpe United sixth with 40 points. And Southend United seventh with 35 points. And in the relegation zone, we have Gateshead with 19 points. Morecambe with 17 points in 22nd. 23rd are Aldershot Town with 16 points. And bottom of the table still are Truro City with 12 points. Right. I think it moves on to, I think it's National League South, is it? It is. Thank you, Sam. Well, let me start with Joe. Before you want to get into Torquay, is there any games at all that really stood out the weekend for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to ignore that game entirely, Ben, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, I'll give top honours this week, I think, to Dover.
Yeah.
Really, really impressed with what Jake LeBeau's doing. They're the only team that have beaten Western at home this year, having gone to Western and winning. And they've gone to Chesham, who themselves are a really efficient team at home. They've beaten Torquay at home. They've beaten Dorking at home. And Dover's gone there and got a result. And he's doing a fantastic job, Jake LeBeau. I thought that they were a good side when they played Torquay at Playmore. Really, really impressed with the football that they play. And they have actually surprised me a little bit, because when they came up, I thought that they would just be a, efficient football inside in terms of playing some nice stuff and really attacking, but they're actually showing their ability to roll their sleeves up, be a little bit more physical, and to go to Chesham and win. Luke Baptiste, the only goal scorer in that one. It speaks volumes of how well Jake LeBeau is doing with a fairly young team. A lot of players who are stepping up to the division for the first time. And they're sitting, mid-table, which is a pretty healthy return.
Ninth place, I think.
Ninth place. So, yeah, I think if you'd have told any Dover fans that they'd be sitting ninth going into December, I think they'd have absolutely snapped their hand off with that one. So, yeah, they're doing really well. Well done.
Yeah, absolutely. Fair play. I mean, I know Matt Gerard, I don't know if you know him, Rob, from BBC Radio Kent. He tends to cover Dover Athletic quite a lot. And, Matt's a good friend of mine. I chat with him many games when he's come to cover Matchday. And he said anywhere above the bottom four this year for Dover is a success. So the fact they're on, 31 points, with not even halfway through the stage of the season, maybe their aspirations might change slightly. Who knows? They've got that momentum still from coming up. And I'm quite interested to see when we play them on Boxing Day to see what kind of side they are, because they were a very poor side the last time we came across them, obviously, when they went down. So it will certainly be interesting how they get on. But it's it's been terrific for them. They do seem to put up the old result. And like I said, picked up a couple of really good results on the road at some very tough innings. Like I said, Chesham are no mugs at all. So that's a brilliant 3 points for them. But on the other side of it, though, Joe, tough one to take of the weekend, was it?
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, I actually said to my dad going into this when I said, wouldn't it just be like Torquay to lose to Tonbridge, having had pretty much the perfect week, smashing Eastbourne for 7, beating Worthing on Tuesday night, and then going to Chelmsford and beating them away from home. Tonbridge were exactly what I expected them to be. Very efficient, very well organised, pretty happy to sit behind the ball and take their chances. The first goal, yes, it's perhaps offside. The second goal, in fairness, is a fantastic strike from Ricky Corbett, which I think he was probably the pick of the players for Tonbridge. Really good player. Has obviously played in the Football League with Northampton, so there is some quality there. Torquay had lots of chances. I think if Jordan Young was more confident in using his right foot, we might have got more than just a consolation out of this one. A number of chances. Ultimately, it was his left foot that opened up a fantastic opportunity for Louis Dennis, which he converted. No Paul Watton on the touchline in this one, which potentially may have had a big impact. He was obviously suspended after, I believe, being sent off against Worthing at home. But yeah, ultimately, credit to Tonbridge, because not many teams have gone to play more on one. And Alan Dunn, it was a bold move to sack Craig Nelson, who I actually didn't think was doing that bad a job, to be honest. Obviously, they made that change. They brought in Dunn, who's never been a manager before. He was obviously number 2 at Bromley. And they've had a couple of really good results, having beaten Torquay. They beat Worthing on the road as well in late September. So, yeah, they're a capable side, and well done to them. Obviously, now it's 2 weeks off for Torquay. We're not in the FA Cup. We're not in the FA Trophy. All the cup competitions are boring. We travel to Tottenham on the 20th. So potentially come at a good time. Just bringing everybody back down to earth, as I think they'd have been a bit cock-a-hoop after the week that we had going into Saturday.
Yeah, definitely. I think that sometimes a break is needed as well, particularly this time of season when you've got a lot of games to play over the Christmas period. So it's probably not the worst case scenario, really, is it? But it's like I say, it's like I say, one of those results you're always going to get in the season. And like I say, Tunbridge have been right on it, so in recent weeks, and also they do pick up against the top sides because they know they've got nothing to lose. So even as a Saints fan, fair play to them. Morgan, any standout results from you from National South?
I'm going to have to go down to the bottom of the table here and kind of touch on two, because Enfield, Hampton's called off with 2 teams down at the bottom, and Farnborough take complete advantage of it and beat a Tottenham team who are now winless in the last 7. Obviously, at the start of the year, Tottenham were looking really good. Scott Rendell was scoring, and you're thinking, all right, they've come up and they're quite compact. And I know, Joe, you said that they were going to be quite hard to beat. That early season form has definitely worn off. They're, I think, down to 12th now. They're falling into mid-table. And Farnborough have taken complete advantage of that, hitting 4 for them. And it's just what they needed when 2 teams in and around them down at the bottom are playing against each other and it gets called off because of the poor weather in the country. For Farnborough to then show a bit of a statement and hit 4, yeah, they conceded 2, but hitting 4 is never easy. So to hit 4, take the win when 2 teams aren't around you who aren't playing is a massive, massive thing. Yes, there's a lot of football to still be played. Pardon me. But at that point, you just need that because they're out of the relegation zone now because of it. And they're 2 points ahead of Enfield, who are a point behind Hampton and Richmond. It's just worked out really, really nicely for them this weekend. And hopefully they can take that momentum into what's never a nice Christmas period with how quick the games come. And they might look at, when it comes to it, the middle of January, they look back and say, that Tottenham game was a massive, massive win for us. And they might be up to 15th by that point, and everything's a different scenario.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I would add on Tottenham is I actually did put them to finish in the bottom half before a ball was kicked. And the reason I said that was because I said in my preview that I thought that when they had everybody available and that they had everybody fit, I thought that they would be a decent team. However, I didn't think their squad had enough depth before they started, and it was a very old squad. I mean, you got the likes of Joe Osler there, Scott Rendell, who are nearly in their 40s, still very good players for their level, but there's certainly no spring chickens. And as one of the people there has just commented, they've got 11 players out at the moment with injury. I see they dual registrationed a player from about 3 or 4 leagues below just to fill the bench for this one. So, yeah, I think my fears of the fact that their squad was perhaps high on quality, but perhaps not the quantity, is potentially coming home to roost. And the other point I would add on Hampton, Morgan didn't mention it because it obviously only happened earlier, is we've got Alan Dowson back in a job.
Yes.
Was obviously at Aldershot earlier this season, took over an interim charge. He now returns to Hampton and Richmond. He was there before. And yeah, he's tasked with trying to keep them in the division. Be really interesting to see how that goes. I think from just a personal point of view, he always strikes me as being a proper football man, and everybody speaks very highly of him. So, yeah, hopefully he does well there. It'd be interesting to see whether or not his old assistant, Ian Gray, pops along to Hampton with him, and whether we potentially see Martin Tyler brought out of coaching retirement to complete the attacking trio that we saw in the dugout at Woking. But yeah, nice to see him back in the game.
We should have probably said that. Should have said that at the XCAs, to be honest to him. I mean, I was just going to touch on it, Rob. So you're someone that knows Douse really well, obviously, for his time at Aldershot. What do you make of the appointment?
I'm absolutely made up for him. The passion that guy has for football still is unbelievable. I interviewed him after his last game in caretaker charge at Aldershot, and he was absolutely adamant he wanted to get back in as soon as he could. He loves the game. And listen, he wasn't at Aldershot very long. I will say there were a lot of Aldershot fans that wanted him to be given a chance. And he actually did something very, very difficult. He won the hearts and minds of the Aldershot Town fans, you know. He didn't win a game in his caretaker charge, but he did win the hearts and minds. Now, when you consider that his previous but one job was as manager of Woking, pretty strong rivals of Aldershot, that was quite incredible. I felt endeared to him. I knew that Saturday at Scunthorpe when he did the post-match interviews, he said he was off, and we knew that he was leaving the club on the Monday. And it was heartbreaking for those of us that just got to know him a little bit. He's a wonderful guy. And they say don't go back in football, but there are some circumstances where you do. And I think it's the right time perfectly for him and for Hampton and Richmond. So, yeah, really, really, really pleased for him. Well done, Joe, for mentioning it, although I was dying to get in and mention it first. But, do you want me to do a game as well, Ben, while I'm chirping on?
Go for it. Of course, go for it.
Okay, I'm going to go for the obvious one. Joe will know which game I'm going for because it was the one between the two managers that I know best. And it was their fourth meeting this season, Mark White and Tommy Widrington, and it's actually 2-2 now. Albeit the first game was a pre-season friendly. Tommy prevailed. Josh Barrett scored a couple of goals. Then the FA Cup game between Dorking and Aldershot, and Tommy prevailed, and Josh Barrett scored a couple of goals. Now Tommy's been back there twice with Eastbourne, who don't have Josh Barrett, obviously, and Mark and Dorking have come out on top twice. I think what's worth saying about this game is there were some contentious decisions, a particularly bad one against Eastbourne, where pretty much they won a penalty and the referee even had his whistle to his lips but didn't give it, changed his mind for whatever reason. So there were moments that Eastbourne won't be too happy about for sure. But overall, two big talking points. Number one, Charlie Carter, returning from injury, not played in 11 weeks or 11 games, can't remember which, a hat-trick and an absolute quality hat-trick. Two of the goals are beyond that level. His close control and his bobbing and weaving and then his finishes. And the other ridiculous fact at the end of this game, and I know Mark will be the first to say it sounds like a stuck record, but Dorking Wanderers injuries, they now have of 4 out-and-out strikers, none of them available. They are all out injured. And I think Mr. Charlie Carter, you're going to be needed up front over the next couple of weeks, unless Mark pulls off some sort of move, which I wouldn't put past him. But yeah, brilliant from Charlie Carter. He's done this before, you know, when he was out due to personal circumstances and concerns about the health of his young baby. He missed a few games and he came back in for a game and scored a hat-trick, and he's done it again. Wonderful player, playing at least a league below his level.
Yeah, 100%. I've always been fearful of him. Every time, we ever came up against Charlie Carter, you always hope he wasn't in the side. And I thought our chance when we played him a few weeks ago was to beat him then. Because, like I say, if you've got someone of that talent, that's an established National League player at the very least, you've always got that chance. With Charlie Carter, like I say, it's a tough one for them. Obviously, we're losing, Rutherford, and obviously now they've got Pryor. Then they are, really are struggling because it's their identity of how they play. They've been bouncing off those two, for the last sort of 4 or 5 years at the very least. So it is a huge blow for them. But again, they're still managing to pull results out of the bag, though, aren't they? And they're still in that pack, and that's always got to be a good credit you give Mark, with even with the restricted, options he's got at the moment, he's still bringing home the 3 points.
He is, and he'll say they are in a battle with themselves and they're focused on themselves. But he will have noted the Hornchurch result. Hornchurch have been top of the league pretty much all season, but they've started to slip up a little bit. Is it 2 defeats in the last 3 now? I think
so.
Yeah. So whoever was in that chasing pack in those playoff positions who won on Saturday, they closed within 3 points of the top. Sorry, they closed 3 points, the gap, whatever the gap was to the top.
Yeah,
well,
definitely.
To say that Hornchurch have got 1 win in the last 5. It's not just like two losses in a row. It's 1 loss. It's 1 win in the last 5. Like, they've really hit a bit of a sticky point. They have just signed Junior Moraes though, and if the chat have told us anything, he's going to take him to the Premier League. So Hornchurch shouldn't have anything to worry about.
I'll tell you another big result of the weekend. Ebbsfleet 1, Worthing 2. I think that's the 9th win in 10 league games now for Worthing. You do start to think.
Which was the one they lost, Ben?
No idea. To be honest, some team down in the south, I think, possibly southwest, maybe. Not sure really, but but I always begs the question really with Hinchelwood is, would they be miles clear at the top right now had he been there at the start of the season? That's the thing. I think I'll probably be a lot of Worthing fans' minds. What do we all reckon?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's easy to say. Obviously, he's come in with the impact that he is having. I mean, for me, I think they will. If you finish above Worthing this season, I think you'll probably win the league. Even though they lost to Torquay the other week, I still maintain that they are one of, if not the best footballing team in the division. Certainly in terms of the football that they play, they always find a way to score goals. And yeah, I mean, they're a really, really good side. By all accounts, they didn't actually play that great at Worthing. Against Ebbsfleet. A penalty, I believe, and maybe a contentious offside decision. But ultimately, good teams get that little bit of luck and make their own luck and find a way to win games when they're not at their best. They will be right up there. They'll finish top 3. I'm pretty certain of that. It's whether or not they go and win the league. As for Brad Dollahan, obviously I know Rob's own team are looking for a goal scorer. Well, perhaps they had one sitting on the bench. I maintained it when he went there. Really good player.
We barely saw him, Joe. We barely saw him, and all I can say is that he will have been training day in, day out, and I don't think any of the other strikers were particularly pulling up trees last year. Obviously, Josh Barrett was in pretty fine form throughout the season, but the one that got away there for sure. And probably just while you brought me in there, it's only fair that somebody, and I'll do it, tease up. Ben, why don't you tell us about Maidstone United?
There's not really much to tell, to be honest, because I say we're not exactly exciting to watch, unlike Worthing. It was a much better performance than last week against Salisbury, where we were both sides were very poor. It should have been 0-0 written all over it, but the intensity was a lot better against a Bath side where before the game I would have said it's either going to finish 0-0, it's going to finish 4-4, because both sides I think are very similar to each other in terms of the way they play, in terms of their styles. But I think, to be honest, we took control. I think we had the better chances. I know Darren Wade said they had the better chances the first half. Don't really remember them creating much, really. We had John Gilbert have a header brilliantly saved by Charlie Binns. We've also had one going to the side net from Jeff Tatanga's header. We've also Dean Moore as well, shooting from distance. Like I say, I think it felt like it was only a matter of time. And to be fair, we got a bit lucky, I must say. I'll be the first one to say, when a referee's got a decision wrong, and even when it is against my own, even when it's gone for my own team's favour, Dean Moore goes down in the box early in the second half, and for me, it's not even a penalty. But then the worst part is the fact that Charlie Binns, the Bath keeper, got his marching orders, which I just found. I've watched it so many times back, and I just cannot see a scenario where it's a straight red card. Dean Moore sort of jumped over him. It was never a penalty. If anything, probably should have been a book for diving, and it does change the game completely. So I would have fully understood Darren Way, and the Bath players been extremely frustrated with that. And I think it's the third time now they've had a goalkeeper sent off this season. You're lucky to
Yeah,
get one and yellow free.
I was going to actually use the stat that they've actually had more goalkeepers sent off this year than they've had home wins, which is a crazy stat. Obviously, they had 2 goalkeepers sent off in that one game against Dorking. Harvey Wiles Richards got sent off, and then the goalkeeping coach came on and he got sent off. So, yeah, on to their 4th keeper of the season, you'd imagine. And yeah, I suppose when your luck's out, isn't it? But yeah, I don't know what people make of Bath this season. I was expecting them to perhaps kick on a bit under Darren Way. It hasn't happened. I was a little bit concerned in the summer that they didn't really add anything. It was very much the same squad that Jerry Gill had there. They had 1 or 2 additions, but even those permanent additions were players that were perhaps there last season, the likes of Brad Ash. Obviously, they brought in Will Jenkins-Davis, who I actually think is still a good player for the level. But in the main, it's just been a bit flat, hasn't it? After struggling to score goals. The fact that they let Scott Wilson, who you'd imagine is their best striker and their biggest goal threat, go to a team in their league doesn't send out the best message in the world. Just a bit of a baffling one for them, really. Been really underwhelming.
Yeah, I must say they lacked ideas a little bit at times, and I think that's probably, I would say, as comfortable a 2-0 win we could probably have got. They just really, like I say, lacked a bit of firepower and a bit of oomph up top, and I think that's probably what ultimately cost them. And obviously, going down to 10 men, it does change their way a little bit, so they've had to take an outfield player off. But is it Harvey Wiles Richards on? And obviously his first task is to try and keep out a penalty from Anthony Papadopoulos, who has desperately needed a goal. He's had not the best to probably November, if I'm being totally honest. We got a very good month out of him, and obviously he needed it, slotted it away, sent him the wrong way, and then we've sort of I wouldn't say taken the game to them a little bit. We've just managed the game properly, which it has been a struggle for us at times with the amount of late goals we've conceded. And they did make it hard work for us, Bath, I have to say. It wasn't straightforward, really. But, thankfully, we got our second goal just before the end. 19-year-old Riley Court, one of our own, finally getting his first league goal for the club. I was so pleased for him. You almost felt like a proud dad a little bit, because it's been such a long time since we've seen, sort of one of our own produce of our academy that's come through and scored. Obviously we've had Bibish Gurung, obviously, but he went off to play for various clubs before he came back to us. But so to have someone from our academy come in, have a moment like that, and he's had a terrific week. He's only just learned, in the last week, he's going to be a dad as well, and he delegated obviously the goal to that, putting the old ball bite underneath the shirt, and the bum sucking. Incredible feeling for him, and he looked like he enjoyed it. I could see in his face when I interviewed him after that. He was on cloud 9. He's a local boy. He's been involved in the club for so many years. His dad played for the club, back in the Kent League days. So tremendous moment for him. And I feel like it is the start now of the real Riley Court. And I think he could well be a Sam Corn replacement if he was to ever go at the end of the season. I think he's ready for it now. But yeah, I have to say it's a big win. In terms of the fact that we've had a struggle. In November. With a couple of bad defeats. But with that, we've come back now with back-to-back wins and back-to-back clean sheets. It's so important. And I still cannot believe how we're sitting 8th, to be honest, because I really don't think we've been that great this year. But look, George is still, getting results. It's not pretty. It really isn't, great to watch. But we're winning games. And ultimately, that's what's going to win your promotion at the end of the season. Not saying it's going to happen. I still think there's so many teams that are better than us, in terms of resources and, the way that other teams play. But look, George will always get a hard work inside out, and he will always have people fight for that last ball. So, yeah, no, we were delighted about that. Just a few other. Oh, go for it, Rob. Sorry.
Yeah, just a little footnote. What a week for Riley Court. Scored his first goal. Found out he's going to become a dad, and found out that you are his proud dad. I mean,
I must say,
amongst many. Yeah.
Yeah, as a supporter, it always feels much more sweeter. And I think everyone felt it after the game when it's one of your own that scores a goal. We haven't brought many players through in recent years. We've had Alex Fletcher, Tom Mills, who were lethal for us down the left-hand side for a number of years. But it's ever since them two, we've never really had anyone come through and, make themselves established in the side. So, Riley is, someone that has got a good career ahead of him. I really hope it's with us because he's captain material. Hope long may that continue, eh? Just any other results at all that stand out to anyone, or we all quite happy with it? No.
Yeah, good. Well done, Horsham again, up to 5th. Yeah. 4 points off the top of the league. Horsham in their first season in the division. And
I feel like I've heard as well. I think it's 16 games unbeaten potentially. I think I might have saw their Twitter admin say. And I think if that's correct, that's outstanding. Like for any club at this level, it's. But then again, like I said, for Don DePaul in their first season, fair credit to them. They're in the real playoff run. Just obviously a couple of other results were mentioned as well. Salisbury won, Hemel Hempstead nil. Great win for Salisbury against Hemel. We've had a little bit of a slip in the last few games and that, but for Salisbury, they've needed that, especially after the defeat against us last week. They really needed to find a response from that because they didn't play very well in that one. But good win for them. I think other than that, we pretty much covered everyone, to be honest. Sam, would you like to put the league tables up for us? And sitting still at the top, only just still, is Hornchurch with 42 points. Second, and catching them very quickly, are Worthing with 39 points. Third are Torquay United on 39 points as well. Fourth is Weston-super-Mare, also on 39 points, just with a little bit of a low goal difference. Horsham in 5th with 38 points. Hemel Hempstead with 35 points and sitting in 6th. And in 7th place are Dorking Wanderers with 34 points. And in the relegation zone, we have Enfield Town with 19 points. Slough Town at 22nd with 18 points. Eastbourne Borough 23rd with 15 points. And bottom of the table are Chippenham Town with 12 points. Right. National League North. Morgan, where do you want to start with this?
I'll go easy. I'll go the high scoring one. I'll go with the big shock, the 5-1 Oxford City win against Darlington. Oxford, they're still in the relegation zone. They're still a point from safety after this win. They've had a really, really poor season. And they hit 5, and I think that just kind of says something. They've been so poor this year that they can hit 5, win so well. Captain Sturridge with the hat trick, and they're still in the drop zone. Darlington were 6 unbeaten before this game. They'd really got themselves into a good position. I think they were 4th at time of kickoff. I don't know where this has come from. They'd beat Spennymoor in recent weeks with Cedric Main scoring late on. 2 red cards in that game as well, 1 for each team. They beat, I think it was Bedford, and a 4-3 win recently as well. They'd got themselves some momentum. They're winning close. They're winning games against teams around them, like geographically. They're outscoring teams like Bedford, who we know can score goals with players like Marsh up front. This game's coming from absolutely nowhere. So I feel like that deserves a massive mention. I don't know kind of what it means for Darlington's season. It might be a blip, and next week they're back to winning games, and they're going to be in a playoff hunt, and they could be in the National League next season, knowing how the National League North playoffs can go. Oxford, this might be a random blip, and next season they're in Tier 7. It might completely change the fates of both teams, but I feel like we have to start off talking about one of the biggest shocks of the weekend.
Yeah, I think as well, worth noting as well, was it DJ Clampton Sturridge with a hat trick as well for Oxford City? Yeah. That again, I just don't think that just came out of the blue. I say Steve Watson's Darlington, obviously have come out of absolutely nowhere, pushed themselves into the playoffs, and it feels like they've been brought back down to earth a little bit, hasn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, Steve Watson, he puts together some quite hard-working teams. I was a really, really big fan of him when it was at York, and I was quite sad when he got sacked. It felt like the right time for him to leave, but he puts together quite a likeable team. Obviously, Scott Barrow's there, Cedric Main's there. There's a few York City links, and he's a really easy manager to like. So they've kind of gone under the radar when so many people have been talking about Files and South Shields with their money, and Mirth with Ricardo Reese and their kind of rise. And other teams in the playoffs, like Scarborough in the playoffs, but have had their kind of home away from home. I feel like Darlington have done a really good job of just kind of sneaking under the radar, win after win, putting together this run of results, got themselves up into the playoffs, and then out of nowhere, Oxford and DJ Campton Sturridge have brought them right back down to earth.
Yeah, definitely. Like I say, but big win as well. Like I say, right down the bottom, needed that. They've had a tough time, Oxford City. Obviously, with all the travelling as well they have to do. I think everyone has to remember that it's a lot of commitment for those Oxford City players who probably haven't got the same resources as some of the bigger clubs in that division. But then again, like I say, they do seem to pull it out of the bag when it really matters, and like that would have been very hard to take for Steve Watson, who probably wouldn't have lost 5-1 too many times in his management career. You know, very established at this level. So yeah, it's a great win for Oxford. Rob, any standout results for you over the weekend?
Yeah, I'm not as close to the north, but the one that I can resonate with because they're actually 12 miles from me is Bedford Town. It's quite a story. They're a very small club, really, really kind of low budget wise, but they're building something that sort of a togetherness really, and players want to come and play there. You've got Tyrone Marsh there, you've got Nathan Ashmore there on loan now for the rest of the season, and I don't know if anybody spotted this one, but Adam Chickson, who was kind of the top scoring fullback, wingback in the National League just a couple of seasons ago, is now at Bedford as well. And they came within seconds of winning 2-1 away at Scarborough, who are in the playoff positions. Scarborough got a penalty, I think 90 plus 5 or 6. So they still got a useful point, Bedford, and they're making a real fist of their fight to stay up. They would have been most people's picks to go straight back down. And they're giving it a right good go. You shaking your head, Joe, and you saying that you didn't pick them to go straight back down. You thought they'd do all right, did you?
Yeah, I mean, I had faith in Lee Bircham. I think I put them mid-table or low mid-table. Yeah, I mean, he's a good manager. Whatever level he's been at, he's managed to win. Obviously, this is his hardest job. But yeah, I mean, I do get the point that, and I think Lee Bircham himself would have been appreciative of the fact that any season that sees them finish above the bottom 4 is a good season for them, because you know it's geographically it's a pretty difficult place to recruit for, certainly with all the travelling, and they haven't got the biggest of budget. So he's done really well actually to bring in or put together the squad that he has. I mean, there's a lot of experience in there. You mentioned the likes of Chickson and Marsh, the likes of Greg Taylor as well. It's obviously played 200-300 times for Cambridge. I see they signed Joe Andrews recently, who was really impressive at Chippenham and got his move to Peterborough on loan. Went to Peterborough and joined Bedford on loan. So, yeah, they'll be really pleased with their start.
Yeah, definitely. Joe, is there any standout result for you at all?
Yeah, I mean, the one that really stands out is Kidderminster. Obviously, been a lot of pressure on Adam Murray. Rightly or wrongly, I can't say either way. I think, yes, there was a lot of pressure on them this season. The fact that they just missed out on the title on the final day and then missed out in the playoffs. But for them to go to South Shields, who sits second and, 7 or 8 points ahead of them in the league table. So that was a really, really impressive victory away from home. South Shields, their form has been a bit mixed of late. They've had a couple of wins at home. I know they beat Oxford City, but they have had 2 defeats recently as well, which has kind of coincided with Jasper Shake picking up an injury. Obviously, always difficult to replace a goalkeeper. But yeah, credit to Adam Murray. He's gone out and had a couple of new faces, brought in Charlie Cooper from Yeovil. And then obviously the real headline addition is the return of Ashley Hemmings this week. Obviously went to Dagenham in the summer. Reading between the lines, potentially was an offer too good to refuse. He's gone there. He's perhaps not featured as much as he would have liked, or certainly not been as scoring as much as he'd like. And he's now back home. And it's no coincidence that he returns and they get back to winning ways. Certainly, Amari Morgan-Smith would be happy to see him out on the wing, supplying him. So, yeah, a real statement to go away to Shields. Not many teams have won there. And even at this early stage, the fact we're just before halfway through the season, it was a big win because they're only 6 behind Merthyr. So, yeah, they've got to win to keep in touching distance.
And I think I'm right in thinking as well that that's South Shields' first league defeat at home of the season, which, again, like I say, is they've been very consistent at home. I think only Shrewsbury Town have beaten them in the FA Cup. So they've been, like I say, in great form. Away from home, they've had a couple of little slip-ups, but obviously one team that's managed to take advantage of that, obviously, is AFC Firewood with a big win over Merthyr. Now moves, I think, 4 points clear at the top of the table. Huge result for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people probably predicted a goal fest. I joked last time and said it would probably end 0-0. But yeah, obviously a bit of a rarity that we haven't got Ricardo Reese on the score sheet.
Yes.
Not many teams have been able to stop him this season. But yeah, File, they're going along so nicely, aren't they, under Craig Mahon? Obviously made that change. And he did really well at Curzon, obviously warranted a job like this. And he's been really impressive. There's a quiet confidence about him, which I really like. He knows that he's got a good team there. The fact that they lost Nick Horton, I think in some ways has actually helped, because it's been less of the sort of Nick Horton show. It's been more of a collective effort. They've got so many nice attacking players there now. And yeah, they are ticking along really nicely, doing a good job.
Yeah, really nice. That's the thing. I think it's quite key. Daniel Morot got the winning goal sort of midway through the second half. It looked like absolutely. I mean, I don't know what it was like for a lot of the games sort of further up north, but the conditions looked absolutely awful for it. And again, like something obviously we saw what happened with Rochdale with their game getting called up. I am surprised that I'd have managed to see that one through to, but I'm sure it would have probably been back still to the end for them. But again, showing themselves that they are very keen and and certain that they need an instant return back to the National League. So it's a big result for them. Obviously, another result as well. We got Spenny Van Chris in the chat. Marie Nils, Spenny Moore Town 2. I think that pushes Spenny Moore back to within the brink of the playoffs. So he's put much needed win for the Moors after a bad set of results recently. 2 goals from Rob Hanshaw sealed a 2-0 win. That's probably the shortest report actually you've done this season, Chris. I must say. I was expecting the freaking essay of it. But Spenny Moore, that's the thing. They've sort of still been hinting in and around there. Obviously, they've been in and out of the playoffs, a few times this season. But again, they're still showing that their aspirations haven't changed. And they are here to stay. They want to be in that fight in the top 7 come the end of the season.
Is everyone all right? Like, Ricardo Reese didn't score. Glenn Taylor didn't score. What's going on this weekend? It feels like you can pencil it in every time we call on this podcast. It's Spenny Moore score. Oh, it was Glenn Taylor. Oh, Merthyr scored. Yeah, it was Ricardo Reese. Both were kept quiet. Obviously, Rob Ramshaw was able to kind of take advantage of that if they've kept him quiet. Ramshaw had the space to score. And obviously, File take advantage of keeping Reese quiet so they can win and go 4 points clear. But it's just weird how those two have both been kept quiet this weekend.
Yeah, obviously, as I just completely forgot that they're sitting in somewhere in America. That I'm watching it in DAZN. I thought it'd be on DAZN somewhere, probably. Probably not. There's a 3 o'clock kickoff, isn't it? I'd say not a great result for them on the road. Again, as well, another good result actually for a side that have really been struggling this season. Chester, big win, 2-0 win at Kings Lynn Town. What are we thinking about that one?
Yeah, I mean they would have been happy that this game actually finished. Because last time they were 2-0 up away from home, the game got abandoned due to rain. So, they'll be really pleased. Another manager under pressure, albeit another manager that certainly looking in from the outside. I know it's easy to, be always critical of your manager if you're losing games, but I like Callum McIntyre. I think he's done a decent job, always in and around it. I did predict a bit of a drop-off before the start of the season, but they will be in and around it. Against the team that I actually picked to win it, which obviously is not proving the best prediction in the world. But yeah, a much-needed victory away from home. Not many times this season that they've kept a clean sheet.
Yeah.
Obviously in Culverhouse, another home defeat. Been a bit of a mixed start, hasn't it, there?
Yeah, but they've been slipping down the table slightly, haven't they? You had them sort of probably nailed on at least for the playoffs, I think, at the start of the season. And again, so they're only 6 points off and still have a game in hand over a couple of those sides above them. But ultimately, if you don't get into a consistent run of form, and obviously this is probably the part of the season where it gets quite key. You've got so many games to play in a short space of time. I think just after New Year, you can probably get better sense of where you're going to be a little bit more, I guess, where you are going to be towards the end of the season.
Yeah. One team that didn't play this weekend, but I'm racking my brain to try and think when the news was and whether this was discussed last Monday on the podcast. But Ratcliffe didn't have a game, but we can't review the National League North without mentioning Bernard and Jono, and Ratcliffe officially turned down an approach for them last week.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
have we discussed it on this pod yet? I don't think we have.
I don't think we have. No, not that I know of.
No, I mean, if I was a betting man, which I'm not, but yeah, I mean, if I was a betting man, I would imagine it was probably Bury, chance in their hand. Obviously, just sacked their manager, and Jono is well documented a Bury fan. So I imagine that they probably thought, why not? Let's chance our hand. Yeah, I mean, they're not going to turn down a job at Radcliffe. They're doing a good job there, sitting in and around the playoffs. And yeah, as much as there is perhaps a romanticism about Jono getting to manage his or the club he supports, I don't think he's going to be dropping down to that level.
It'd have to be an extortionate offer, I think, to take him away from there as well. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't know what he's probably on at Ratcliffe, to be fair. But, you always feel like where they are at the moment is you want to finish what you started. And like I said, the momentum they've built with Ratcliffe this year is nothing short of remarkable, given the fact, like I said, they were against some tough clubs in that division. A lot of people probably from the outside would have thought, they'll be down near the relegation zone again. But they're absolutely standard. They're only, a point off the playoffs at the moment. Like they're having a terrific season. I mean, why would you move away? I know, like I say, it's hard to turn down when, a big club like Bury comes in with a support base and the fact they're on their way back up, you want to be a part of it. It might have been appealing to them like there was when they went to Salford City. But again, would it be that similar pressure? Bury, the fact, look, we need to get back into the Football League as soon as possible. I don't know if they would relish on that or whether they're just enjoying the moment of being at Redcliffe where, the pressure's maybe off them a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're probably enjoying it. At Radcliffe, they've got a lot of their ex-Chester and ex-Salford players playing for them now there. So it seems like a really happy camp. So, yeah, I don't see them moving on anytime soon.
No. Again, another big result, and actually at the bottom of the table, Peterborough Sports 0, Hereford 2. That's big. That's quite significant really for Paul Gaddis, where he's probably been under significant pressure there from supporters. Gus Mafuta getting on the score sheet for them. I mean, you look. We've said it in this podcast a few times. The fact that Hereford probably shouldn't be where they are for the club of their stature. With probably the backing they've got. The fact they're even in and around the relegation zone is a massive shock. But you've got to take it when it comes. And against Phil Brown's side, who would have probably been very hard to beat. That's a big 3 points on the road, isn't it?
Yeah, massive win. I know we've spoken on here about Hereford's poor form and whether it's something to do with like their ownership setup of it is very, very fan owned, and do they have a bit of a ceiling and what's kind of gone wrong this year. It's a massive win because we know what Phil Brown can do. Very, very good manager, obviously very experienced, having been as high as the Premier League and now dropping all the way down. He's never going to be an easy manager to come up against. So Hereford really, really needed that. Obviously, I think it moves them just above Peterborough, just out the relegation zone. So it's obviously a really, really big one. And just looking down, who else is down there that could have someone think about that relegation? Obviously, yeah, Oxford win. So with that Oxford win, I know I mentioned it earlier, but Oxford smack Darlington for 5, Peterborough lose, Hereford win. That relegation scrap's just getting that a little bit more interesting. Alfreton lose as well. Leamington, it doesn't look like they played. I think they got caught up with the Radcliffe one. So obviously, Hereford needed that. When other teams aren't playing or are picking up points, it's a big win for them.
Yeah, I mean, there's only 3 points as well between Southport in 19th and Alfreton in 23rd. So it's very close, that end of the table. I mean, I think towards the top, I think you can already see it's probably a 2-horse race between Fard and South Shields, unless Kidderminster could find themselves a comeback. But again, the playoff race, again, is heating up. This is the thing we've always said about the divisions, obviously, like from National League, North and South, the competitors are there. And this is why I think the extended playoffs really does keep a lot of team seasons alive, would we say?
Definitely so, yeah. And just somewhere in amongst those results, we're talking about the angle from the teams at the bottom. But Alfreton losing 2-1 at Curzon Ashton, that was a very, very late winner for Curzon. A sort of sickener for Alfreton, for whom a point would have been useful. And for Curzon, it means that they still sit inside the playoff position. So let's just give them a bit of kudos, really. They've lost a really capable player manager, or he's more manager than player, I think, now, but in Craig Marn. But they've kicked on again, haven't they? Joe, remind us who's in charge now at Curzon.
That's a very good point. I can't remember his name. It's I think is it Bradshaw? Craig Bradshaw?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to throw you under the bus.
Mark Bradshaw. I knew it was a Bradshaw.
Yeah, I just knew you. I just thought if there's anyone who knows, it's got to be Joe.
Yeah, I knew it was a I did say Mark Bradshaw. Yeah, I mean, I believe he was number 2 to Craig Marn. Before obviously he left. And yeah, I mean, we haven't really talked about them this year. They've sort of gone under the radar. I got told off by some Curzon fans last year for not talking them up a little bit more because of the season that they had. And yeah, sit 7th, doing quite nicely. Lost obviously quite a few key players, a number of which have gone on to play in the Football League, the likes of Devon Matthews and Isaac Sinclair that are now playing at Accrington. And yeah, they're doing well.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say just a couple of results I think we haven't touched on. I think it's only really Worksop 1, Chorley 1, and AFC Telford 2, Southport 2. So a couple of Desmond 2-2s in there as well. Yeah, I think we've pretty much covered pretty much all of that really. Sam, put us through to the league table. Thank you very much. So top of the table, we've unsurprisingly still got AFC Fylde sitting there on 47 points. Second behind them is South Shields on 43 points. Third are Merthyr on 40 points. In fourth place, we've got Kidderminster Harriers on 34 points. Darlington is fifth with 32 points. Scarborough sixth, also on 32 points. And Curzon Ashton making up the top 7 with 31 points. And in the relegation zone, we have Peterborough Sports with 20 points, Oxford City 22nd with 19 points, Alfreton 23rd with 18 points, and bottom of the National North is Leamington with 13 points. Tough times for Leamington at the moment. They need a big turnaround there, even though they've got a couple of games in hand. But it's still, like we said earlier, still over half the season left to play. It could all change. That's the thing. So yeah, it's certainly a competitive National North. Right, I think that brings an end to the podcast. Sam, I'm actually surprised you've actually managed to keep a straight face all that. Man United win 4-1. I didn't see you celebrate one goal at all. What's going on?
I've been having the best time. You know what I mean? My team has just been banging goals in, listening to you guys. Is there a better way to spend a Monday evening? I don't think so.
You set a new little routine for you now. Come on a Monday night. What Manchester United are playing. I mean, now what is their record when you've been hosting the National League non-league podcast on a Monday night? 100% now, isn't it?
100%. And the great news is they're on again next Monday against Bournemouth. So we've got an opportunity to double the record. You
love a Monday night, don't you?
We're loving a Monday night at the minute. It's all about the Monday nights. But no, what a fantastic show, guys. And can we all just say for Ben, for his first time hosting, absolutely brilliant, Ben. Absolutely smashed it, mate. It looks easy, but it's not. He did a phenomenal job there. So massive congratulations. And of course, to our brilliant team as well, supporting him fantastically. And hopefully we brought you a really good non-league show for you tonight. But of course, we need to follow these wonderful people. So Ben, if people don't know where they can get more Ben in their life, where could they get that?
If they could dare to put any more of me, to be honest, on Twitter, but I really doubt there's anyone that could be bothered to look at any of my tweets. It's not as entertaining as what the rest of the guys do. But if that's where you want to find me, that is the place to follow. Thank you, Graham.
There we go.
Treaty.
There we go. Do check him out. Of course, Morgan. What about you? What about your wonderful stuff? Tell everybody what you're up to and where they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter at _Morgan_Bruce, waffling about football and when York City are actually playing, York Press previews about it. And I'm trying to put together some more essay style pieces. I've plugged it a few times. There's a Josh Stones piece pinned to my Twitter page. I actually met him midweek. He's a lovely man. But yeah, if people can go check that out, I'd really appreciate it. There was also a piece done for Josh Barrett, Rob, that I know you shared. I was hoping he was going to be on the score sheet when you turned it around this week. When I saw his 2-1, I was hoping he was going to be on there. But yeah, York City previews, other random National League tweets and whatever else I'm thinking about.
Magic. Do go check it out. And of course, Rob, where can everybody find you and our fantastic friends at NL Fulltime? What have you guys been up to and where can everybody find you?
Well, yeah, our pod, we normally record on a Sunday. The boys did a great job yesterday in my absence. And we cover the 3 leagues, much like this one. We also have a few guests. We got a very interesting interview this weekend with Ollie Harfield, who 18 months ago was playing, I think if I remember right, captaining, but I'm not sure, but playing for England C, playing every single minute of every single game. And then bang, beginning of last season, horrific knee injury in a really innocuous fall. He broke all his CLs, ACL, MCL, whatever the other CLs are, everything, shattered his knee, and he's been out a really long time. He's still out. He's on his way back, but we had an interview with him, and he's released an ebook, which he's designed to kind of try and help people if they're out with long-term football injuries, because as I think we now start to appreciate more, it's the mental side that's so difficult. You can always follow a plan physically. Yeah. And quickly on your point, Morgan, when I said Aldershot had 12 chances and not scored against Altrincham, Josh Barrett was involved in 10 of them.
Wow.
But it just wouldn't go in for him. And I've said enough now. NL Fulltime podcast is out, and Joe's on it. And I wasn't, so I'll shut up and let Joe carry on.
Yeah, so I was on the NL Full-Time pod this week with Dickie, obviously the Telford fan and commentator and PA announcer this week. But yeah, follow my stuff, Off the Line blog on Twitter. Busy month coming up with pieces, mainly EFL, but lots of pieces on there going into January.
Wonderful. Do check all that wonderful stuff out. And I am at Sam Absolute FBL, which you can mostly find on the Absolute Football Podcast, hosting many shows at the moment. We've got a lot to cover this week. Don't you worry. This is just a start. Of course, on Monday, you can catch our Absolutely Non-League show here with the collaboration with NL Fulltime every Monday from 8:30. I'm on tomorrow talking Premier League. I will be talking Manchester United beating Wolves 4-1, no doubt about it. Spoiler warning, Wolves were trash. It's probably the best analysis I can give that in one sentence. You've got on Wednesday Freya and the brilliant Team Chaos with Absolutely Women's Football, talking everything as the WSL and WSL 2 was back this weekend. And we've got on Thursday, Absolutely Lower League show. We've got an absolutely a waterfall of football. I think we've got double game week and the FA Cup. There'll be plenty to talk about on Thursday with the Rowdy Rabble. I'm going to be back hosting that, I think, this Thursday. But we will have the team with me as well, talking everything wonderful there. 8:30 live, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You can catch us on Twitter, Absolute Ball Pod, YouTube, Absolute Football Podcast, and the same on Twitch, TikTok, Absolute Football Pod, Instagram, Absolute Football Podcast _ Blue Sky Absolute Football, and Facebook, the Absolute Football Podcast. Do check us out. Plenty coming up soon. But thank you, everybody, for supporting us. Have a wonderful week. Enjoy the football. We'll catch you on the next one. And ciao for now.
Get well soon, Shah.